managed to start changing the funding formulas to make sure that areas like this are getting the funding that they deserve. Because we inherited a bunch of formulas from the Labour Party that shoved all the funding into deprived urban areas, and that needed to be undone. I started the work of undoing that.
Well, that is awkward. Joining me to discuss what Rishi meant is author and charity worker Nick Buckley MBE. Hi, Nick.
Good evening.
Good evening. What do you think of that?
The first thing is, I'm always suspicious when people release a very short section of a video, because they've clipped it, they've clipped the bit they want everyone to hear. So it's out of context. We don't know what he said before that, and we don't know what he said after that. But the bit I've heard sounds terrible, considering he's running at the moment in a leadership race to be Prime Minister.
Absolutely. I mean, could you imagine what context would make something like that okay? This is probably the worst video to come out ever during the hustings of a political politician.
For someone who's been fighting poverty for over 2 decades, I've come across rich areas that don't get any money because they're perceived as you're a rich area. But within those areas, there's always pockets of real deprivation and poverty. So because we look at the council area or the MP constituents, we say to ourselves, oh, you have so many millionaires living in your area, you're obviously a rich area, you don't need any extra money. But there's families and there's estates and there's neighbourhoods in those areas that are suffering usually a lot worse than the inner city areas, because they have no access to anything. They don't have access to jobs, they don't have access to public transport, they don't have access to government schemes. And these are the areas sometimes that are left behind, that are forgotten about, because they're not Manchester, they're not London, they're not Birmingham. So we just need to be careful. I want to see the whole video of what that man said.
Absolutely. I mean, do you think that even this clip in and of itself is damaging to not just him, but to Tories as a whole?
Oh, of course it is. And that's probably why it's been released. That's why that clip has been released. It's because it's damaging to him, and it's damaging to the Tory party as well. It just feeds into that long-term stereotype of the nasty party. These people don't care about average people. They want to give the money to millionaires. It just feeds into all that rhetoric.
Yeah, it's pretty damning. Well, I think you'll agree. It's certainly going to be interesting to see what his response might be. Anyway, but thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to comment about that particular video? Or
yeah, he's already commented. He's already online now talking about what he meant, which is basically what I just said. He's talking about in certain areas that are not perceived to be poor, there's deprivation in pockets.
yeah.
And the cities attract all the money because of their Labour policies. And we need to start looking about how we're going to level up the whole country. Not levelling up just the cities, but level up the whole countries. The forgotten mill towns, the forgotten rural areas where no one's had a job in decades. And that's what he said he meant. But again, someone should release the whole clip so we can make these judgments ourselves.